Clutch Sports Talk. Let's go. Happy Monday, everyone. It's me, your boy, Ryan Flowers, a.k.a. Clutch Sports Talk in the house. It's Monday. Man, college football was crazy this past weekend. Conference championship games, coaching carousel moves, college football landscape. It will probably be different in the next couple of years. You'll see that here. So I got lots to talk about there. We got the college football playoff. That's all set. The 4 teams have been selected. I think personally they got it right. I think, for what it's worth, I think the right teams made it. Some other teams had a chance to maybe kind of get their way in there, but they ended up squandering it away, like Oklahoma State. Also, again, coaching carousel, we got moves from all over. Mario Cristobal moving to Oregon. Moving to Miami, where he's from. We also got Brent Venerables, the defensive coordinator from Clemson, going to Oklahoma. Obviously, we talked about Lincoln Riley last week with USC. So many coaching changes. I have to talk about that as well tonight. And Tom Brady, he's the MVP. That's pretty much it. Unless someone else comes out of nowhere. Right now, Tom Brady is running away with it. He will be, I believe this will be his 4th MVP. But if you think otherwise, let me know. And finally, Stephen Curry is again back at it again, MVP status. And also, I want to kind of bring up a question. Why isn't he considered one of the greatest to ever do it like a LeBron? So something to think about. But anyway, without further ado, sit back and relax and enjoy the show. This is Clutch Sports Talk Live with me, Ryan Flowers. Let's go. What's up? Happy holidays to you guys. It's me, your boy, Ryan Flowers, a.k.a. Clutch Sports Talk in the house, bringing you another edition of Clutch Sports Talk Live. Like I said just a couple seconds ago, man, college football was off the chains. College football playoff is set. That the New Year's Day games, I think all 6 of them, man, they are pretty good. I'm gonna have to talk about that, but I got to talk about the playoff and the teams that are set. So a lot of people did not expect Alabama to beat Georgia the way they did. They figured maybe if Alabama would win, it would be a close game. It wasn't. Alabama destroyed arguably one of the best defenses in college football in the last 10 years. A defense that was only averaging 233 yards per game. They gave Alabama almost 300 in the first half. Also, a defense that had only given up 83 points all year. They gave Alabama over 40 points in a game. Bryce Young arguably won the Heisman. At least he solidified his Heisman stamp on that game last week or this past Saturday against Georgia. But I think for the most part, the playoff committee got it right. I think they matched the teams up appropriately. A lot of Michigan people are feeling a little some type of way. One of my friends, I was trying to explain to him exactly like why isn't Cincinnati over Alabama or Georgia? Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter about your record. Cincinnati is, records matter for certain teams, right? For Cincinnati, they had to go undefeated to just be the 4th seed. Okay. Alabama could have lost 2 games and probably still made the playoff. Why? Because Alabama is the cream of the top. Even Georgia lost in the conference championship game and got dismantled, and they still are a 3rd seed. But Michigan should be in there as well. I think they did a good job. They beat Ohio State, which they hadn't done in like 10, 11 years. You followed up with a really good, strong win against Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. So, I think for the most part, if you're Cincinnati, I won't say you're lucky to be in the playoff. They had a good season. They went undefeated. You won your conference, and maybe you can make some noise. Can you beat Alabama? I don't know. Not the way Bryce Young is rolling right now. But overall, I think there was no. I don't think any school could say, we should be in it. Notre Dame lost to Cincinnati. That kind of puts you out of the conversation. Oklahoma State maybe had a chance, but then they lost to Baylor in their own conference championship game. So, I think for the most part, they got it right. Are we tired of seeing Alabama and Georgia or teams of the SEC? Yeah, probably are, but maybe that'll change in the next couple of years. Maybe not. I don't know. But overall, I think the committee got it right. And I think that it's going to be a hell of a play. I won't say hell of a playoff because I think Bama will roll Cincinnati. I've only seen Cincinnati once this year against Notre Dame, and I was kind of like, okay, they're good. They're good mid-level time. I mean, they play in the American conference. Well, I don't know, like who else is in there other than Houston, right? So it's pretty. You can't compare the American Conference to the SEC, where you got to play Texas A&M. You got to play, even LSU was down, still got to play them. They still have athletes on that team. You got to play the Georgias, even Auburn. Auburn is not been, they haven't been a powerhouse the way they were a couple years ago, but still, that's a better conference top bottom than any other conference in college football. Maybe the Big Ten. The Big Ten maybe has some really good teams. Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa. Who else in the Big Ten? Wisconsin. Those are some solid teams. Michigan State. Those are some solid teams, but it's not the actual SEC. So I think they got the seeding right. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to see Cincinnati and Michigan in the national championship game. No one wants to see that. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, you Michigan fans. We don't want to see that. We can care less. It's a boring brand of football. Okay. Honestly, like I was watching that Big Ten game. Cade McNamara, I think at one point had like 6-7 attempts for like 63 yards, and we're almost at halftime. Same thing with Georgia. I'll be honest with you, like that playoff game to me will not be as exciting, only because I feel like it'll be a defensive struggle. It'll be low scoring. Michigan's defense is really good. Aiden Hutchinson, the DN over there, probably arguably moved his way up into the number 1 pick for next year's draft. But Michigan doesn't have the offense. They don't have and neither does Georgia. Their quarterback play really isn't that great. Stetson and JT Daniels, to me, they're not going to get that game will be a lot more interesting than Alabama versus Cincinnati. I just don't see how Cincinnati can keep up with Alabama. And for whatever it's worth, we talked about Georgia's defense and how great it was. Listen, Nick Saban is a defensive guy. He played corner at Kent State. He's a defensive guy. And he's been known to recruit a couple really good defensive players in his time at Alabama or even LSU. Okay, so, maybe they weren't as dominating as Georgia's defense throughout the year, but that's a good defense as well. And they proved that on Saturday. So, but, as far as the New Year's Eve games are concerned, I'm just pulling those up right now to see. Let's see here. From what I remember, it should be pretty good, man. Obviously, you got the playoff games, which was a plus. Let's see here. I should have had that pulled up for you guys already. I know Notre Dame, Oklahoma State is one I'm looking forward to. That I will say. That one is going to be interesting because you got the new head coach, Marcus Freeman, which I'll talk about here in just a moment here when I get to the next section. But that should be a game. I'm just pulling up this list for you guys so you can see. Let's see here. It's pulling up everything else that I don't want. Michigan State, Pittsburgh, Battle of the Big Ten, ACC. That's the Peach Bowl. You got the Fiesta Bowl, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State. That one will be interesting. The Rose Bowl, Ohio State, Utah. Utah traditionally not a Pac-10, Pac-12 power, but they finally made the big game. It's interesting to see how Ohio State will bounce back after their loss to Michigan. Or will Utah be ready to go? Utah is very physical team. So that should be a good one. Ole Miss and Baylor should also be another one. So really, really, really good game schedule that day. So, if you're a college football fan like me, like myself, you're going to be excited about that. But to wrap this up, literally, I think they got it right. I don't think there was no other team that could make a case that can say, we deserve to be in the playoff. Other than the teams that I mentioned, like a Notre Dame or Oklahoma State, but they had their chance. Notre Dame lost to Cincinnati. Cincinnati's in. Oklahoma State, needed to beat Baylor. They didn't. Guess what? They're not in there, but they're going to play in the Fiesta Bowl in a good game. And it's oddly enough, the two teams who I thought maybe could have had a chance are going to play each other anyway. And it's going to be Oklahoma State's defense is really good. Now, it didn't really look like that against Baylor, but that's a really good defense considering from the Big 12. And it's going to be interesting to see Marcus Freeman take over the helm over at Notre Dame in his first game as head coach on New Year's Day. How he was introduced as the head coach today. So we'll see how that goes. But all right, speaking of coaches in the college football world, we had a lot of turnover in the last 72 hours, of course, and then obviously last week we had Lincoln Riley. We got first comment of the day. Bryson Carver just wrapped up his podcast. I love his show, man. He's a good guy, insightful. Check it out if you haven't had the opportunity. He says here, cannot wait for Georgia for Michigan. Two physical teams and a game that will, yeah, and you're absolutely right. You know what? Because here's the thing with Michigan and Georgia, they don't have high-powered offenses, right? What we saw Michigan do to Ohio State was basically they ran the football. I mean, Hassan, what's his name? Hassan, I forgot his name. The running back there for Michigan, he ran for 5 touchdowns, right? Hassan Haskins. Listen, this is going to, and both defenses are good. Don't sleep on Michigan's defense. For as much as I don't want to see Michigan in the national championship game or even Georgia, because they'll probably most likely get blown out because the quarterback play is not great, right? But this game will probably be the best game out of the 2 games of the playoffs, only because it will be a defensive tilt, and it's going to come down to whose quarterback is going to make the play. Georgia can run the football. They can do that, but Michigan's offensive line is elite, man. They are good, especially at the point of attack. They maul you down, and they have big backs. Michigan has a plethora of backs outside of Hassan Haskins that they can go to. Cade McNamara, I mean, listen, he's a college quarterback. I don't think he's going to be on anyone's draft board when he decides to come out. I believe he's a sophomore or junior out of Nevada, out here, Northern Nevada. But listen, he's not anybody that anyone's thinking about right now as a future NFL draft pick. Yeah, even Stetson and JT Daniels for Georgia. So, what is that? That's weird. My phone just went off like that. I don't know why. But anyway, listen. So that game will be interesting. I will be looking forward to that one because it's going to come down to a last play here or there, right? So, but moving on into coaching, who got it right, who got it wrong? I think for the most part, every school that was looking for a college coach, a big profile coach, I think they got it right. Last week it started with Lincoln Riley. He decided to leave Oklahoma to head to the West Coast. The money he's getting, he's got access to the jet. It's Hollywood, it's LA. Who wouldn't want to come to LA and revitalize a program that's been dormant really since Pete Carroll left? Okay. So I think USC got their guy. They needed a big splash, and they got that guy. I heard people, Luke Fickell, the guy from Cincinnati, I was like, nah, he doesn't fit LA. He doesn't fit LA. When you look at Lincoln Riley, you're like, oh yeah, I can see that guy. Younger, nice young family. Something about him, he just feels more of a West Coast coach, a guy and he's coached at a big time program. And so why not, right? Then you look at LSU. LSU, they make the move for Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly, horrible introduction. I don't know where that Southern twang he got. I don't know. All of a sudden it just dawned upon him. But outside that, the guy's a football coach. He's a football coach. He's 60 plus years old. He did a great job at Notre Dame. Outside of not winning a national championship, he's probably one of the greatest coaches Notre Dame has seen. And honestly, when those guys won those national championships as a head coach, it was a different time. Notre Dame, for those who don't know, they have a very high academic standard. And what I mean by that is that, listen, they are not going to get kids that go to Notre Dame. They love football? Yes. But they also value education a lot more. And I'm not saying kids that go to Alabama or Georgia or these other schools don't, but there's a reason why there's a higher academic excellence there at Notre Dame. And so therefore you don't get the same players Georgia or Alabama, because football is not first. And I think what Brian Kelly was able to do there for so long, I mean, look, he made the playoffs 2 or 3 times, made a national championship game once. I mean, that's really good. That's really good. But he's saying, you know what? I'm a good coach, but I need the guys to help me win a national championship. Now you're going into the SEC, SEC West. So you will have to play Texas A&M. You got Alabama, of course, once a year. But he'll be able to go down there and recruit. He'll get the lay of the land. Now he's not a Southern guy. I believe he's from the Midwest. He's from the Midwest. But listen, he's a great coach. And I think LSU found the right guy to replace Ed Orgeron. Ed Orgeron was a great recruiter, but I'm not sure he was a great X's and O's guy. I think that year they won the national championship in 2019. He pretty much was a benefactor of having a lot of talent, which he ended up bringing there. But after they all kind of fell apart, LSU has talent. I think just this year they just couldn't get it done. So they'll turn that program around very quickly. Then you look at Oklahoma. You lose Lincoln Riley, and now listen, Lincoln Riley's gone. Now you bring in Brent Venerables, a very, very, very great defensive coordinator for Clemson. He's going to bring some defense into the Big 12 because Lord knows we know that the Big 12 needs defense, and hopefully he'll be able to bring that edge, that toughness. And Oklahoma will still get talent too. It's Oklahoma. It's Oklahoma. As long as they can pull kids from Texas, parts of Louisiana, things of that nature, even parts of their state in Oklahoma, they will be able to be all right. Will they be offensively as gifted? I don't know. It all depends on who he brings in as a staff. But I know that team will be a very, very, very well coached team on the defensive side of the ball, and he might be able to recruit guys that want to play defense for him at Oklahoma. So I think, for what it's worth, I mean, listen, they never won a national championship with Lincoln Riley. They made the playoff. They couldn't get over that hump. They may not get the offensive players because Lincoln Riley brought that offensive side to it. He Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, who else was there? Jalen Hurts, guys that were Heisman winners or Heisman contenders, things of that nature. CeeDee Lamb, wide receivers like that. Marquise Brown, or AKA Hollywood Brown. So, I think they'll be all right. As long as you can play defense, you'll be in a lot of games. That's Georgia, right? Bryson says, I love the Brian Kelly, but how does Massachusetts man get it? So I think he just got caught up in it, man. I ain't gonna front. Like, I've probably done that once or twice in my life. I think when I first moved to Texas years ago, probably some of you looking at me like years ago, you probably were like in middle school. No, I'm 37 years old, but years ago, in my younger days, when I moved to Texas, I got caught up every now and then with that little draw, that little twang. I started saying y'all a lot more. How you doing? Stuff. And I caught myself. I'm like, dude, I'm from LA, bro. Like, I'm from South Central LA. So I guess he just got caught up in the moment. He's speaking in front of his people now, the LSU Tiger and faithful. It was at a basketball game. He was juiced, and he had a moment there, man. But I just hope that in the end of the day, he stays true to himself, which I think he will. You don't become successful everywhere you go and not be true to yourself. Because if you think about it, everywhere he's been successful. When he left Cincinnati, Cincinnati was, I think I think he left them to go to Notre Dame. They were getting ready to play in the Sugar Bowl years ago. So, it is what it is. And Mario Cristobal today. He's leaving Oregon, heading back home to Miami to help the U. Listen, if anyone that knows me or follows me on social media, my discontent. It's not that I don't hate Miami, but I just get tired of people saying, oh, the U is back. The U is not back, and I don't think they'll ever be back. Mark Cristobal is a good coach, nonetheless, right? I think he's a great coordinator. A great motivator, a great recruiter. I'm not sure about his X's and O's. I'm not sure about that. They let Manny Diaz go. Manny Diaz was like 21-15 in 3 years in Miami. Not bad, but from Miami standards, it's almost like USC, right? You expect national championships. They're still living off the past, the Jimmy Johnsons, or, when those early 2000 teams, with Clinton Portis and Sean Taylor, Ed Reed, guys like that. Those days are long gone. And trust me, I live in a city like that with UNLV basketball. UNLV basketball they haven't won a national championship since 1991. And people still talking about that, like with Larry Johnson, Stacey Augmon, Greg Anthony. Like, it's over, man. Like that, these kids today know nothing about that team. Same thing when it comes from Miami. It's like it's great. Yeah, well, that's Ed Reed. Like, that's cool. He's a Hall of Famer, but like some of these kids don't care. They don't care. And they're not. And another thing with Miami, another problem for me that I have, they don't have a stadium. You're playing in an NFL stadium, which for some schools it works, or they have to do that. But for Miami, dude, the old Orange Bowl, for those who don't know them, and that was like part of Miami football. They need to get back to that. Playing at whatever it's called. I don't know what it's called. What's that stadium called? I don't even know the name of the stadium anymore. There where the Dolphins play. But listen, Hard Rock Field Stadium, who cares, right? You bring in Mario Cristobal. I think he'll be able to recruit. But one thing you have to question him about is his tactics. Not sure. And especially the way his Oregon team just folded. And I get it. He's been there a while. He helped. But, I mean, he won a Rose Bowl. I think he won a Rose Bowl or made a Rose Bowl, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he did win a Rose Bowl with Justin Herbert. I just don't like how their season ended. You get destroyed by Utah twice within the last 3 or 4 weeks. You lose to Stanford. So I get it. I get it why they bring him back. He's a Miami guy. And I think this is the problem with a lot of programs, even professional sports like the Lakers, back in the day, even recently. You want to recapture your glory days, right? And so you think, well, we can just get a guy that was a part of those glory days and we can bring him back in and we'll get back to that level. And it doesn't work like that, man. I think sometimes you got to go outside because you gotta get someone that isn't bogged down with the tradition. I'm not saying that person they have to respect the tradition, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be a part of what they do all the time. And I think Mario Cristobal is very embedded in the city of Miami. He grew up there. He played there. He even coached there at one point. I believe his brother is a very highly respected member of law enforcement in that city. It's a lot of pressure, and they're expecting him to bring back those U teams from the 90s, and it's like, I don't know, man. So out of all the teams, I think, like I said, out of all the teams, he might have been the reach in a weird way, but we'll see. It's Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman. I think he's the second youngest head coach in Notre Dame history. He's 35 years old. 35 years. He was first year in Notre Dame in South Bend, defensive coordinator by Brian Kelly. He seems like he'll be all right. He said all the right stuff today in the press conference, but we'll see. It's a lot different than being the defensive coordinator. Now you're the guy. So Notre Dame took a really big chance on him. They took a really big chance on him. I hope it works out for him because I think he looks like he's ready to go. I think Notre Dame really, again, they wanted to stay in the house. They didn't want to do too much moving around. Notre Dame will still be able to get guys. I think that won't be the problem. But again, it will come down to the X's and O's. So I think for the most part, all the schools got their guy. Now Clemson is out of a defensive coordinator. What's going to happen with them? What's going to happen with Clemson overall? I mean, will they have a lot of guys decommit now? Is Dabo Swinney looking like his run over in the ACC is going to be over? Will Miami be able to take that next step? Miami will be better. I think so because they'll get players. I mean, look, the Florida is full of great players. I think Florida has more NFL players than any other state in the country. I mean, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Okay. All right. Woo. I was long-winded there. Sorry about that. But listen, Tom Brady. I mean, I'm not even spend a lot of time on this because I don't think there needs to be a lot of time spent on it. Tom Brady, man, I used to hate this guy. I hated Tom Brady. I hated everything about the Patriots. Dude's 40. He's the MVP again, man. Ben Roethlisberger is not even 40. And look how he's playing, right? I mean, Tom Brady, leading first in yards, I believe, first in touchdowns, with 37 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe he's second in QBR. It's not a long shot. It's a landslide. I don't think there's anybody else right now that can even say that they can be close to being the MVP. And there were a couple of front runners early on. I think Kyler Murray was on pace a little bit. I mean, can we drop the Matthew Stafford? Because I know a lot of people had him as a dark. I'm like, dude, Matthew Stafford is Matthew Stafford. But Tom Brady, MVP. And like many of us think, we'll have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers ready to go and be in the playoff and be in the Super Bowl. I mean, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be in the Super Bowl. And it's mind-boggling because the guy's 40 years old, and the way it looks, it's like when I haven't seen anything from him that tells me that he's diminished. His skills are diminishing. It's not like when you watched Peyton Manning or even Eli Manning, the Manning brothers. You can just see how it just was like they were good one day and then boom, snap of a hat. It was like the end game. Just boom, done. Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, his has been leading up for the last couple years, but it's like, dude, it's bad. And then you look at Tom Brady down south eating avocado ice cream. and doing TB12. You know, I need to get on avocado ice cream if I'm going to be doing like that. I mean, it's incredible. And you can say, he's got weapons. I mean, that's fine. That's whatever. But I've been documenting. I mean, he's the greatest of all time, man. He's the greatest of all time. There's no debating that. Show me somebody else who has done what he's done. And for the longevity, we've had players that played well into their 40s, like a Jerry Rice. I think Jerry Rice played into his late 30s, early 40s, but he wasn't dynamic the way Tom Brady is. Like you have to prepare for Tom Brady. you know, you can't. And Bryson says, the great outlier. You can't compare because listen, he is just so unique that nobody else nobody else measures up to him. Right? And I've said this a couple weeks ago. As far as the quarterback position, he isn't the greatest. There's been guys that have if you talk about just straight up quarterback, physical features, talent, stuff like that. No, he isn't the greatest. There've been other guys that are far more talented than he is. But if you combine, some of the stuff that he does good from a physical standpoint to other attributes, he's the greatest of all time in championships and stats. He's the greatest of all time. The greatest of all time. I mean, I've said this a couple times. I think if you talk about quarterback play, Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback. Is the best quarterback right now, but he isn't the greatest of all time. He's not the MVP of the league, right? Dan Marino back in the day. For some of you who don't know Dan Marino, he was legit. He was throwing for like 2,500 yards a season, which back in those days, that was crazy. You weren't doing that, but never won a Super Bowl. Made it to one Super Bowl. Never made it back after his rookie year. So, but Tom Brady, man, like, listen, as much as I hated the guy, did not like him, I've grown to respect him, and that's just my maturity speaking. Because when I was younger, you just hate on people for some reason, whatever, right? But as I get older, I respect his craft and what he's been able to do. He takes care of his body, and therefore you're seeing that right now. So, hands down, he's the MVP. He's the MVP, and there's nobody. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, he's nice. He's a nice player, but Tom Brady is the MVP, and he's the GOAT. I believe it'll be his fourth MVP, third or fourth, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it's his fourth. I believe it will be his fourth. So, hands down, MVP. All right. MVP talk. And also a little bit of greatness. So, I don't know if you guys have been watching NBA basketball recently, but Steph Curry is playing out of his mind right now. I mean, literally. And arguably, he's leading the race for MVP of the year early into the season. Now, there other guys will do their thing, and I'm just pulling up some stats on him. I mean, he's averaging 27 points this year, which is ridiculous. He's third overall in points. He's tied for 6 in rebounds. Tied for 6. Oh, excuse me, 67th. I'm sorry, 67th. But I mean, the way he's helped carrying this team while Klay Thompson is out. I think to me, that's what stands out the most. Now, right now, he's shooting about 41% from the 3-point line. That's really good, man. That's almost close to half. Literally, he's throwing these things up. And again, this is another guy I kind of hated on. I'll be honest. I used to hate on the Warriors. I used to hate on them. But as I see them, I can appreciate. Here's a couple things about Steph Curry. I'll even talk about the Warriors here in a minute. And I'm a Laker fan, but I have to give credit where credit's due. Steph Curry, for whatever it's worth, after they won their championships and they had a rough patch, after they lost to the finals to Toronto, I thought they were done. Klay was getting hurt again. Steph had a couple of slew of injuries. Draymond was hurt. I thought they were done. I didn't think that this organization would be able to bounce back, and they have. And standing there the whole time, you didn't hear a peep out of Steph Curry, man. He stood there steadfast as a leader should. And he stood in there, and now look where they're at. They're back on top, and arguably could win another NBA championship this year. So right now it's there are a lot of great players in the league. Absolutely. A lot of great players in the league. But one guy I think doesn't get a lot of credit. And it's funny because I was listening to a podcast, Marcus Spears and Kendrick Perkins on ESPN, and they're like, well, will Steph Curry go down as one of the greatest players of all time? And I thought about that. And I was like, you know what? When that topic is brought up, I don't think anybody thinks about Steph Curry as being one of the greatest of all time. And I started thinking, well, why? Because I think for starters, he's in a very big guy. He's only like what 6'1", right? If I'm not mistaken, 6'1", no 6'2", which is small in the NBA, right? That's way taller than me, but small for the NBA. When you think about Giannis and LeBron and KD, these guys are like 6'6" and taller, right? KD's like 6'7", whatever, right? Even Jordan was 6'6". Kobe was 6'4". And I think when you think about it, you don't think about him dominating games, but when you really break it down, this guy changed basketball the way we see it today. The three-point shot wasn't as valued as much until those Warriors teams a couple years ago really put an emphasis on that. The way they were able to take and make threes at a very high clip. Steph Curry, basically, if he's in the gym, he's shooting it. And now you see other teams starting to adopt that mentality. And I think, he's not going to drive the paint and just dunk on you. He isn't a great defender, right? Because why? He's not a big guy. But that doesn't mean he can't be one of the legends. Now, is he the greatest of all time? No. But I think the question should be asked, though. He could be considered one of the top 5, 6, 7 players ever to go down in the NBA history. It doesn't mean that you got to be a great defender. You got to do this great. Like what he does great, he does very elite. And a lot of people can't say that they do that. Because if you could make the argument, well, LeBron, he's considered up there with Michael Jordan, which, okay, fine, right? But he isn't the shooter like Steph. Steph Curry is arguably the greatest shooter the game has ever seen, okay? Has ever seen. But me personally and my boy Bryson, and I'm talking about this because I know he's a Warriors fan, and I got to give him his props. He says, most unselfish superstar in sports along with Tom Brady. This is why I put him above. Yeah, absolutely. As he's quiet. He doesn't get in the media. He's not trying to manipulate his team. He's not trying to do all these. He's not trying to get rich type of scheme. It's, I feel like LeBron and KD, they try to do these like pyramid scheme type things, right? And it's not working out for KD now, right? Obviously, he left, and now he's in Brooklyn, and he's probably not going to win a championship there. And then you look at LeBron and the Lakers. It's like, it's God, like really, the Lakers are struggling. And you look at the Warriors, who 2 years ago I thought dead to rights. They were, I would say last year I didn't think they would be any good, and it wasn't until the end of last season when I really started paying attention to Steph Curry and the way he was able to help that team get into that playoff situation, right? That's when I was like, damn, you know what? They might actually be good next year, because a lot of those guys, the Pools of the world, they got a lot of work. They got a lot of work, and they got a lot of experience, and those guys came out confident, right? And to me, the Warriors are arguably the odds-on favorite. I know they just played the Suns, and they split the last, the couple games that they just played. Both were at home for each of the teams. But at the end of the day, I think the Warriors are the better team overall. And Steph Curry should be in the talks of top 10 at least, if not top 5 best players of all time. And why wouldn't he be? He's got the rings. And he has changed the game. If you want to be one of the greats, you have to be able to affect change, and this is something that he has done. I know, Bryson. I know. He says never bet against great players in well-run organizations. I told you we'd be back, Ryan. Laugh out loud. Yeah, you did. And I'm not. I'm a man. I'm willing to admit that I was wrong. I'm not wrong a lot of the times. And when it comes to this, I was wrong. But I'll tell you this, Bryson, I'm not wrong about Lamar Jackson. I'll tell you that right now. But that's another topic for another day. But listen, That organ, and then you're right. The Warriors organization as an overall, they never wavered. They never wavered. They made smart moves. You know what? They said, you know what? We'll get some draft picks. We'll draft the right guys and we'll make it work. We're not going to go out in free agency. We're not going to give away pieces that we'll need, like a Wiggins just to get some renter player for a year and not even win. You have to be able to cultivate talent from within. That's how organizations like the Warriors are able to be so viable. You look at the Spurs for those long years, that stretch that Greg Popovich had. A lot of those guys were homegrown, man. They were drafted. They were scouted by. I mean, even the New England Patriots for whatever it's worth. A lot, but the Lakers right now, it's just like, oh, that guy used to be good. Let's bring him in. So that's the difference between the Lakers right now and the Golden State Warriors. I think after Jerry Buss died, Dr. Jerry Buss, God rest his soul, the Lakers were in trouble because he left the team to his children, who really had no experience in the business. They just basically lived off their trust fund kids, right? The son tried to run the team for a little bit. We saw what happened. Now Jeannie basically, and it's not even because she's a woman or anything, she just doesn't know. She's taking advice. She's like, well, we need to get LeBron. Okay, great. You got him. You won a championship, whatever, right? But the team itself is eroding, and they can't get out of the way, and she doesn't know what to do. Rob Pelinka is basically, you know what, man? Like, I brought in Luke Walton, he sucked. So we went and got Vogel. Vogel might not even be the coach after the season because LeBron might be like, nah, I don't really like him. And I question. I used to be on LeBron's side. I would always be like, you know what, LeBron is up there with Jordan, but honestly, man, the last couple of seasons, I'm just like, I'm not saying LeBron is not great and has never been great. That would be foolish for me to say that. LeBron is a great talent. One of the greatest NBA players as well, too, right? But I just don't like the way he moves. And I think it's starting to bother me to the point where I'm just like, I love the LA Lakers. I'm from LA, but it's hard to watch that product because the way it's been treated, especially in the last 5. And I get it. They just won a NBA championship, 2020, right? The COVID year. But it's like, it didn't feel like a real championship. It didn't feel like it was a Laker championship because none of those players were Lakers. They were brought there. But when you look at the Warriors, they can say, we win a championship, it's from our guys. We, with the exception that year they got KD for rental for 2 or 3 years, and they had one before him. So that's a little different. But I want my teams to draft, to recruit, to bring your guys in and win. To me, that's how I am as a youth football coach. I'm not out here trying to recruit kids to come play for me. If you don't know the value of what I'm going to bring to your son, then that's on you. I know what value I can bring. If you don't like that, then that's fine. You move on. You go find another team that has 5, 6 All-Americans, whatever, right? You may win a lot, but you're not going to learn a lot. And I think right now that's where the Lakers at, and the Golden State Warriors, they know what they're doing. And Bryson, last comment, he says, I respect that, though. Appreciate a Laker fan and a friend giving their flowers. Yeah. I like the pun. But yeah, no, man. Hey, listen, for those of you who've never watched my show, I'm not a fanboy. I talk trash about all my teams respectfully. And I'll talk trash about your team respectfully too as well. So I'm not going to sit here and just be like, oh, the Lakers are the best team. They're going to win the NBA. Because that'd be stupid. What's the point then? Because then I can just go down the street and talk to a regular Joe Schmo. Let's just be real. Okay. If I can be real before I get up out of here, a lot of sports fans are not educated. That's why you watch shows like myself, Bryson Carver, our other friend, Barry Grant Jr., and sometimes you have to be leery about the big box shows like ESPN and Fox Sports 1 because you know what too? They're really spewing out just random stuff too because they want followers. They want people to watch. So you have to be careful. I'm going to be very honest. I'm not going to be as biased as a lot of those other networks. And then a lot of fans, they just don't know. They don't know. And that's fine. That's why I have this show. That's the whole premise of the show is to educate people, not to change your mind, but it's at least to be like, you know what? That's how you think. But before you completely are sold on that thought or that ideology, here's this to think about. But I'm not going to change your mind, right? If you think the sky is blue, the sky is blue. Maybe I think the sky is green, but this is why it might be green. Just let you think. So, but a lot of people would sit here and say, "Oh, well, you're not a Laker fan." I'm still a Laker fan, but I'm honest too. I'm honest. But that's just my little soapbox spiel there. But listen, that's why we do these things. And there are a lot of podcasts out there, and it's a lot of hard work. I'm not downplaying anybody else that does a podcast or a show like this, but there are a lot of people out there that they are not informed, and then they get on here and they have a lot of followers and they spew false information. They spew false information. So I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I don't claim to be the smartest guy in the world, but what I will do, I will put everything out in front and say, okay, what do we have here? What do we have here? And this is what we got. So I'm going to be honest with you. So I'm a diehard Cowboys fan, and I'll talk crap about them when I need to. I'm a diehard Lakers fan, and I'll talk crap about them too. I love the Dodgers. I love my Golden Knights. I used to love the Kings, but I love my Golden Knights now. So it is what it is. But I'm USC. I grew up in LA. I grew up in the backyard of USC, and for the last couple months, I've had USC on my not so much list twice, and I talk about them a lot. So I'm gonna give you the guys the real, and that's the real deal. All right. Before I get up out of here, I gotta do my clutch. Not so much. Today was different. Today was different. I'm in the giving mood, so I only had one not so much contestant or candidate this today. So, but let's just start with the clutches. So, there you go. Oh, sorry. There we go. All right, clutch. Detroit Lions. They won a football game. Wow, great job. They came back from behind. Last second throw. Jared Goff to Amon St. Brown. They win. They beat the Vikings. Vikings are done. Get them out of here. But shout out to the Detroit Lions for winning a football game in the National Football League. So shout out to them. Also, staying within that organization, shout out to Dan Campbell, man. I'll keep doing that. Shout out to Dan Campbell. After the game, he gave the game ball to I believe the city in which that horrific school shooting occurred in the state of Michigan. So for whatever it's worth, I don't think he's a great head coach, but I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he'd be a really good coach if he was like a coordinator, maybe, or even a assistant coach somewhere in other type of capacity. But I got to give him his props today. It might be the one and only time I ever put him on here is in a clutch moment. So other than that, shout out to Dan Campbell for giving the game ball and showing that respect because this school shootings, man, it's getting ridiculous and it's got to stop. It's got to stop. So shout out to him. Clutch moment. Bryce Young destroyed the University of Georgia football team on Saturday, solidifying his candidacy to be the next Heisman. He's from California, modern day. Shout out to them. I believe they finished the year as the number one team in the country, modern day at least. And Alabama will finish the number one team in the country when it's all said and done. So shout out to him. And finally, not so much, University of Georgia football. More specifically, the defense. What happened to you guys? You guys are supposed to be this vaunted defense, and you sucked. Hopefully, you guys can pick it up against Michigan and get your rematch against Alabama to prove to everyone that you guys are, that you guys are legit. So we'll see. We'll see how that goes. Hart, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not like I don't like Dan Campbell. I just don't think he should have been the head coach. Simply, and which is fine. I can think that, right? Just because he's a coach in the NFL doesn't mean I have to like that. But I think he's a good guy. But not necessarily head coach type material. So Bryson says, hard to dislike Dan Campbell. Not a great coach, but definitely a great press conference afterward. Hart goes, yep, absolutely. Prayers go out to all those families and the victim. Even prayers to the assailant. We never talk about this. When these things occur, we pray for the families who were involved in the victims, but also, man, we have to say prayers to those other people who committed those heinous crimes and activities because they need prayer too. They need prayer too because there was a reason why this young man decided to do what he did. He needs help as well, and hopefully he'll get the help. But obviously, he does need to serve the time, which he probably will, and even his family, because I believe his family was arrested as well too. So all those people, it was a terrible situation. Hopefully, it would never occur. It's going to happen again. But as a community, we have to be strong for everybody, for everyone. So, all right. Yeah, Bryson says, amen, brother. Yep. That's my sermon for today. Appreciate you guys. But other than that, man, I'm out. Monday Night Football. Patriots going to win. It's cold. It's snowy. That's Patriot football. That's the Patriot way. And no, I'm not going to become a Patriots fan. I'm still Cowboys football all day, every day. Dallas Cowboys football for life. So anyway, I'm out of here. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Next time you can catch me live is next week Sunday. Oh, no, I won't, because I'll be on the road. I'll be busy. I might do a quick live on my IG, but you can catch Clutch Sports Talk live next week, Monday, as scheduled at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook and YouTube. Still figuring out that Twitch thing, so I don't know what's going on with that. But other than that, hope you guys enjoyed the rest of your week. Enjoy the Monday Night Football game. Patriots are going to win. I'm telling you. And if not, I'm probably getting clowned on social media. But anyway, I'm out of here. This is Clutch Sports Talk Live with me, Ryan Flowers. Never settle till the work is done. Let's go.